Have you ever thought about what it might be like to host a live event and how to use that live event to grow your coaching business? This is an amazing supplement and way to add value and bring together community to grow your coaching practice. And this week's guest and I are going to jam away on the power of live events for your business growth. Welcome, you guys, to another episode of the Best Damn Coach podcast. Today, we are talking about live events, all things live events, being in person, like hugging a person in real life, which is kind of funny because this week's guest I met at a real life event. So
We
it's very
did.
timely. So I'm so excited to have you, Kristen. Welcome.
Oh, I'm so excited to be here. Thanks for having me.
Of course. We met at kind of a mutual friend connections live event, I don't know, many months ago. And you spoke on a panel, and I just kind of fell in love with your energy. We hit it off, followed up. We've kind of supported each other's communities. But I'd love for you to just tee off my audience on who you are, kind of what you do now, what got you here in that kind of quick snapshot view.
Yeah, so let me make it as quick as possible. I started in the real estate industry about a decade ago, and I basically I was just trying to see like what worked. I was a recruiter is what I was hired in for. So my job was to figure out how am I going to recruit real estate agents, and once I do, how do I retain them? The way that was like super authentic to me was through curating spaces to bring them all together and then to create a sense of FOMO for all the people that weren't with us that wanted to be with us. And so I did that through room creation. And at the time when I was doing this, like I was not an expert at all in the real estate industry. So I just had to go meet all the experts and bring them in and let them get up on the pedestal and teach and coach and do all the things. So it was really cool. It really taught me a lot of lessons. I started my business in 2020, which is Connect and Cultivate. And I did it specifically in the real estate industry for the first part of it. And then I started having a lot of female entrepreneurs asking me like, oh my gosh, I want to connect to cultivate in my industry. And I'm like, well, why don't I have this for female entrepreneurs then? So I pivoted and created a membership based community. And it was fantastic and having so much fun. I have a nationwide audience of moms in real estate from my podcast that I've had for 9 years. And they started saying, oh my gosh, I wish I had a community like yours where I'm at. So that led me to franchise my business. And now I launched almost a year ago. We have 22 chapters where I
So
coach
cool.
women. Yeah, so I coach women on building local communities as a way to meet new people on a regular basis and stay relevant to the people that they meet. At the end of the day, like it's such a great way to build roots in your community, but every entrepreneur needs to ask themselves, how am I meeting new people on a regular basis? Once I meet them, how am I staying relevant? And this is such a fun way to do it and really authentic for a lot of women that I know. Um, and then I run a Facebook community called Moms in Real Estate that's a part of my podcast where I have 25,000 moms in real estate all across the United States that I support and show up for and love. Um, and that's like the quick version of what I do.
So good. It's so good. I love that there's some diversity there and like you kind of organically have chased what people are asking for and created what they need. It's so funny. Backstory. I've only run an online business because it fit like my season because I started a business almost 9 years ago when my kids were little and I didn't know what this whole business thing is. I didn't even know like networking things existed. And I was on the phone with like a friend, somebody that became a friend who was a sales coach. And she was like, okay, um, well, why don't we try getting out of the house to meet new people? And I was like, getting out of the house? Like, what does that look like? She's like, there's like these groups that you can join where people, I was like, what? And at the time it felt like, no, that's not what I'm going to do. I'm going to do it all virtually. But there's something to be said. And obviously we all went through COVID and that like game changed us a little bit. But I would love to know from your perspective, why do you think being in person? Because I mean, you have both. You have live events, but you also have virtual connections that you create. But why do you think live events specifically have like this bonus flair?
I just feel like you can like take your whole relationship to another level with somebody when you're in person. And like, yeah, I have such a great virtual community, but like when we come together and like we're actually in a room together, we usually meet at events throughout the year. I'm like, we get so much closer. And there's just like a bond that I feel like you can't get on. You can only do so many Zoom calls with somebody. And like, I don't know, there's something about it. But I definitely feel like the in person events, allow for like just a deeper connection.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree. I 100% agree, which is why we're choosing to have our first like 2-day event. I've done retreats for years, and that's special because it's really private and it's hand curated, and not that the live events aren't, but there's something about being in person that I know like I'm craving more of, and you can see, the ROI is definitely different for sure.
Yeah.
Um
Well, gonna give a hug real quick. Sorry.
speaking of being with people in real life,
Yeah,
were
right?
you
Totally.
um speak to this kind of experience. So what do you think makes a I'm going to say live event successful, but I want to put like a definition of success on there because I think that can be defined very differently, because I think there's this element of just people showing up that's already successful. People making connection is successful, but also I define live event success is also like inviting them into further opportunities to work with you and like deepening that connection. So what do you feel like is necessary in a live event for those things to take place?
Ooh, that's such a good thing. Like, I swear I spent years where I was just like doing events and like being so busy in the event that I was not intentional and I would leave. And it's not that it was a waste of time, but there was just like such a missed opportunity there. So, like, usually when I'm at a live event, like I'm trying really, really hard to just like have great conversations, always trying to be interested, not interesting. And you have so many opportunities that will just like unfold if you're able to show up in that way. But always think like before you go, like, what do I have coming up that I can invite people to as they're telling me all these things? Like maybe I can invite them to something that I have coming up, or maybe I invite them to something that my friend has coming up that we could go together, you know? People want to be invited to things. I've learned that over the decade that I've been doing events is like, even if someone says no to you, like I have literally invited people 3, 4, 5 times and they've said no every time, but I will have not all of them, but some people will be like, hey, I cannot tell you how much it means that you include me and stuff. I'm going to come with you one day. And it's really, really hard for people to get out of their freaking house. Like it's insane. It actually is really, really hard. So I know that because again, like doing this for so long, I've had countless amount of times where after an event, somebody comes up to me and says, like, I am so glad I made myself get out of my house and come here. Do you know how hard this was for me? So I know just like it's not easy. Showing up is hard. So just keep that in mind, and then have that invite tool to bring people together in a different way after that event.
Yeah. And I'm thinking for coaches specifically too, as I think about this, is I think you can do like doing a live event in any way is a bonus to your brand, right? Because I think it just creates another way to interact and nurture relationships. But I think for me, it's also knowing the intention that you specifically have for hosting the event. And what I mean by that is I've been to conferences, I know we both have, where, it's very strategic it's working its way up to sell for like some, higher ticket offer or something that's coming, right? I've also been to events that there was no offer sold and it was exclusively just a nurturing event. Or I've been to networking events where the goal is obviously to invite you to continue to enjoy the membership and the community. But I think the most important part is just like knowing what that intention is before you even host the event. Like, is your goal to sell and to make money off the event? Because I know we can both probably say, having hosted lots of events, like events aren't cheap. And sometimes it looks like, oh, this is amazing. I'm going to do this thing. And then you start to look at like the budget of what it is going to be a host event. And it's very easy to figure out like, oh, this isn't like something I'm going to do to make money. So what is it for?
Yeah, that's such a great point because there was again like years of having lots of mistakes. Definitely going in knowing like what is this for and like what's a win. So if I walk away and I didn't make money but I broke even and I made all these new connections, like that might be a win for that specific event. Or maybe it is something to where I'm like, hey, I really want to profit X amount of dollars off of this event. You know, I do a retreat every year, and my main goal of it is literally just to cash flow enough to bring my family out there for a week and stay in like the most amazing badass house in that area. And so I don't care about anything else outside of that. Like that's my main thing, like break even and then have enough to pay for my family. And so and it always does that. And it's cool because it's just been like this tradition that I do every March for that specific retreat.
Yeah, I love that. And I love that you know that intention and it's so clear because I think that's where the disillusionment comes from live events or just even launching offers is they're not clear and or they have like crazy unrealistic expectations because they've never sat down and actually like worked the budget and the numbers of what things are going to look like and so they end up falling short of that like that gap of reality and expectation and it's very muddy in between.
Yeah. I will say one thing, like I talk to a lot of people who host events. One conversation I'm having a lot just so far in January of 2025 is like it's really hard for the people that are throwing the events to get people to purchase tickets. It's been a lot harder than it ever has. And I'm like, what is it? And so I think that one thing I always encourage people to do on the, hey, if you want to attend events, like I look for events to attend when I'm planning out my year. Maybe as part of like your annual plan, you're like, hey, what am I trying to grow in this year? Is it like I want to be better at marketing? Do I really want to work on my money mindset? Do I really want to focus on, getting in the right rooms with people that are doing far more than me? Well, what are the opportunities that you can see out there and plan for those and purchase the tickets for them because you will be so happy and it really like helps out all the people that are putting all this money, time, and energy into the hosting the
Yeah.
events.
Yeah, I totally agree. I don't know. This is my first time hosting an event. I mean, we're 3 months out. We've sold half our tickets. It's intimate. I don't know because I don't have like a baseline of ticket sales. But I also think to add on to that, this is maybe I'm really biased, but I also think that it's very easy to look at events or attend events. And what I've experienced is they start to get kind of fluffy, like there's redundancy in events. And it's like, okay, same, if you're in Arizona, you've seen the same speakers come through or you've seen and there's like this fire hose barrage of information and then it's quickly like take down your learnings. Like, okay, great. I know that, for us as we prepare for our event, like I'm doing something completely different and that is complete workshop style. Like I'm not bringing in tons of speakers because that can also be like this person says this and this person's like, what do I spend my time and energy? It's like, it's me. I'm walking you through a framework, of course, because that's what I do. That's specifically geared towards you getting more clients, which I know is the single greatest pain point of my people, right? So I also think we have to ask ourselves the question of like, how do we stand out? How do we create an event that is unlike something else if that's our desire, right? Where for you, maybe like you have an established history of live events. You've kind of built a name for yourself in like having events. But for me, it's like, who do I want to be in my live events? What do I want to offer different? And then how do I like get the messaging out there that that is different? So I don't know. That's just like what's on my heart around it, as well as we like enter the new year too.
I love that. And if anyone's like going to be hosting events, I will tell you something that has been a hard lesson for me is like I always overpacked it with value when it came to the educators and like the actual like what are you going to leave and like be able to go implement in your business, but it was too much. And then I left no room for the connection piece. And so like now fast forward when I'm doing retreats, like and any of my events, like connection is at the center of it. Like everything else is secondary. So yeah, you're going to get a lot of value. You're going to have tactical things that you're going to be able to implement. But at the end of it, like I know my community wants to have those relationships. They want to be able to be like, I'm going to call that person that just taught and they're going to pick up my call. I'm going to be able to ask them some questions. That is so, so valuable. So like I make sure that I curate a space where there's opportunity for these like deeper conversations throughout the entire retreat and or event so that they
Yes.
leave with that over anything else.
Yeah. Okay, let's stay on the same vein because I'm curious. People are like thinking like, okay, how does an event like lead into my business? What does that look like? I'd like to ask kind of the paradox of this question. So, what's the coolest thing either you've ever experienced at a live event or you've done at one of your events that you would say has been pretty mind blowing?
Oh, okay. I'll tell you like the thing that comes to mind. I don't know if it's the coolest, but I was approached by my tax strategist. She has this client she's this hairdresser who's like huge in the hair world and she does all this breath work stuff. Well, 3, 4 years ago, I've never even heard of breath work. And I was like, well, whatever, like let's have her open up this event that I do where it's 150 women. It's this event that I would do twice a year, every year. And I just remember when I met her, she's like, she throws out like the most like, naughty words ever and like just says stuff. And I'm like, oh my gosh, I can't believe that just came out of her mouth. And like, but I love her. Like, don't get me wrong. And she just brings off this vibe where I was like, how is this going to go? And I'm like, we'll see. So she opens up the event and she has everyone close their eyes and she starts going through this like breath work exercise. So remember, there's 150 women. This is not like a breath work, like we've got 20
10
people in the
people.
room.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. And I've never done breath work. So I'm like closing my eyes and I have one eye open and I'm like, what's everyone's doing right now? And she had everyone, I would say 95% of the audience was crying and they just opened up. And then the rest of the day flowed in just a completely different way than I'd ever experienced. And like, it was such a fun experience for me. It opened me up to the world of breath work. I brought her into retreats now. She's literally the best person ever. And so I think that that was one of the most like mind blowing things because it was just such a foreign world to me that it was funny. And I was just like, what's everyone going to think? And as a host, sometimes you don't get to be like experience it the same way as somebody that's sitting in
Yes.
the seat. So it was cool to watch everybody and how they reacted to it.
That's so awesome. So it's really like that the activities, right? The real-time activity, like get you out of your comfort zone
Yeah.
experience
Open
for you.
them up. Yeah. I mean, honestly, like even opening up events with like meditation and breath work and stuff has been something that's been really good for me and closing it out in a super intentional way.
Yeah, yeah, I totally agree with you. Okay, so let's flip that. What's the ickiest? You don't have to name names because I know you've never done anything icky at your events, but like, what's the weirdest, ickiest thing that you've ever experienced at a live event?
I don't know if it's icky, but I'll never forget. I did this like Grant Cardone event and it wasn't him. It was like one of his top people. I don't even know his name. And it's super expensive event. Somebody bought me a ticket to it. And I remember sitting there and at the beginning of it, it was like videos of like these guys in these like expensive cars. They're getting out of these like jets and having like Rolexes on and going into these expensive cars. And like I just sat there and I was like, I don't even want to listen for the whole day. Like I just felt like it was such a turnoff to me that I was like, oh, I like it was just all about like show and money. And even like the stories were like one time my wife left like $100,000 of jewelry at our hotel and I'm just like, this is just not my people. So I feel like the ickiness always for me, and again, this is like my own like journey, whatever. I don't like that stuff. So I just like I don't like when people lead with like showy and like it's all about like the money. I'm always like more of like I like when I'm in rooms where people like can impact me as a person and not like showcase that kind of stuff. I don't know.
Yeah. No, I feel you. I mean, I think it's pretty on brand for that, like that brand and that world that those things all align. But I think what it highlights too is that highly masculine energy is like the room actually, when you step into a room and you feel like it's for you, and when you step into a room and you realize this is not for you, right? Based on those things and where the emphasis is put. And I would walk into that room and be the same way, like, okay, these are not my people. And I've totally been in that like let's call it bro energy, masculine energy, where I'm like, I don't even know what kind of car that is. Like that doesn't make me excited. But I mean, that's also why a lot of men fill that room up because those things maybe do, not all men, but some men. So I definitely feel you. I mean, I've stepped into networking events where immediately, or even virtually, not even in person, I've gotten onto networking calls and immediately I was like, I gotta just leave. Like I gotta duck out right now.
You know that meme where it's like Homer Simpson like going into the bushes?
Yes,
Like
exactly. Like
and
slowly
and the
sliding away.
And there's nothing wrong with those events. I think it's more like so it's like somebody might come to my event and be like, I'm out. Like I don't want to do breath work and do whatever it is. But the thing is like recognize it and be okay with it. And know there's a space, there is totally a space for the bros that love the nice cars and the jets and
Totally.
the whatever. It's just not for us.
Yeah, not for us at all. Okay, so as we wrap up, for somebody that's listening, that's like, okay, I definitely love the idea of having some sort of live event, either nurture existing clients, bring new clients in, whatever the case might be. Like, what do you suggest as a starting step? Like tangibly, first step, second step, maybe that they would take towards hosting something?
Yeah. Oh, I love this question. Have a plan, like know why you're doing it and map out like, so for me, if I'm going to be teaching somebody to build a community or wants to start doing events, don't just think one event. I want you to think big because everything big starts small. So if you're like, you know what, this year is the year that I'm going to take on live events, then why don't you find an event like that you could do 4 times in the year? Maybe something that you can duplicate that would make sense. But like, try to plan for it to grow, and then know like what's the purpose of this. Just like walking into an event, like you want to go with intention. Well, if you're doing an event, um, is it to make money? Is it to meet new people? Is it to stay relevant? Like, what is the main purpose? And make sure that you kind of like plan it out.
Yeah, so good. Reverse engineer the desire, I think, is like so key in everything in business, to be honest. So,
Yeah. And hire a
um,
coach, get help. Don't just, I
yeah,
mean, there's so much opportunity that's missed when people do events that they don't know what they're doing.
yeah, so good. Thank you for like sharing all of your wisdom. Tell us more about, I mean, you mentioned your Facebook group, but where's a great place on social, or feel free to share anything that will allow my audience to connect with you.
Yeah, I feel like Instagram's the best spot. So it's just, hey, Kristen Cantrell. And yeah, shoot me a message. Tell me if you listen to this. I would love that.
Amazing. Thank you, my dear, for sharing all the things. I love your energy. So grateful for you.